Welcome to Arizona's 2019 ELP Standards Overview Learning Module, brought to you by the Arizona Department of Education, Office of English Language Acquisition Services. This self-paced learning module will provide an overview of the process to our new standards, the standards and their shifts, the organization of the standards, and lastly, reading and coding the standards. Through the content delivered, this module will ensure that you understand the legislative context behind Arizona's new English language proficiency standards, along with its revision process, the purpose of ELP standards and how they have changed, how the standards are organized, how to read them, and what resources are available when using them, how to code and document the 2019 English language proficiency standards for planning and instruction. Let's begin with understanding why we have revised Arizona's ELP standards. Per ESA, Every Student Succeeds Act, all states must demonstrate that they have adopted ELP standards that are derived from the four recognized domains of speaking, listening, reading, and writing, address the different proficiency levels of ELs, and are aligned with the state's academic standards. Our previous standards met the first two expectations of ESA, but were not aligned with the state's academic standards, which is what provoked the revision process. When we began this work, we knew that this was not something that could or even should be done by the OLS staff alone. That being said, a statewide committee was formed. Let's look at the timeline for revising the English language proficiency standards. As you can see, the process has taken several years to complete. With the support of Superintendent Kathy Hoffman, the revised standards were approved by the Arizona State Board of Education on May 20th, 2019. We are currently transitioning to the use of our new ELP standards and developing our new AZELA, which will then lead us to implementation of both the new standards and new AZELA in school year 2021, 2022, and beyond. The ELP Standards Revision Committee was made up of teachers, EL specialists, administrators, and retired educators from both district and charter schools across the state. This ELP Standards Revision Committee collaborated with consultants from Arizona and California to develop our revised standards. If you were on this committee, we extend a tremendous amount of gratitude to you. Now, let's move into understanding the new standards and how they have shifted. There are three main purposes of the ELP standards. The ELP standards highlight the critical language, knowledge about language, and language skills required by the Arizona content standards that are necessary for ELs to be successful in school. The ELP standards define what is to be learned by the end of a proficiency level. And the ELP standards are broad language concepts and do not represent a curriculum or lists of tasks. You'll notice that the ELP standards are language concepts, not tasks. This is one of the biggest shifts from the 2010 ELP standards. The new ELP standards have provided the following: fewer standards necessary and essential for developing the language required for academic success. They have also proven to be clearer and a more cohesive body of standards that link to Arizona's content standards. and they increase their alignment to Arizona's English Language Arts standards. Some of the most notable shifts are that we now have 3 proficiency levels instead of 5. Instead of stages, we have shifted to grade level and grade level bands. There is direct alignment to Arizona's ELA standards, and we have shifted from task-based performance indicators to skill-based. It's important that we clarify the difference between standards and curriculum. Standards are the learning goals for what EL students should know and be able to do at the end of each proficiency and grade level. Whereas curriculum is the planned sequence of instruction and learning with the use of resources, activities, lessons, units, assessments, etc. In order for the ELP standards to be effective, OLS will need to work with LEAs to help them unpack the standards and align them to curricula. This can include a specific ELD curriculum or ELA, math, science, or social studies curricula. Essentially, the ELP standards are what our EL students will learn, and this has been decided on at the state level. ELAs have a say in how these language proficiency standards are taught through the curricula they choose. Before we move on to the organization of the new standards, let's check your understanding. You will receive 2 statements surrounding the new ELP standards and their shifts. Once you read each statement, it will be up to you to determine whether the statement is true or false. Let's begin. Reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills are taught and learned one at a time. Is this statement true or false? This statement is false. The 4 language domains are intended to develop receptive and expressive skills simultaneously. True or false? The new performance indicators are skill-based. This statement is true. The new standards offer students the opportunity to learn a specific skill, be able to apply it in every instance or situation the skill is called for. The skill becomes an inferred capability, and our students become highly skilled problem solvers because of it.
Now that we have discussed what the new English language proficiency standards are and their shifts from old to new, we will now take a look at how these new standards are organized. As you have hopefully already noticed, the structure and organization of the 2019 English language proficiency standards are very different from the previous 2010 version. The standards for English learners in kindergarten through 5th grade follow the same organization and flow. Each grade or grade band document opens with the reading foundational skills, which are then broken into 4 sections: phonological awareness, print concepts, phonics and word recognition, and finally fluency. Immediately following the reading foundational skills are the numerical ELP standards, and these are organized by communication type: productive communication, receptive communication, interactive communication, and language. We will look at these subsections a little bit deeper in just a moment. To help put a pin in our new understanding of the 2019 ELP standards, here's an example of the reading foundational skills from the 1st grade document. As you can see, the document lists the foundational oral and print skills English learners may need extra support with as they acquire English. For all levels of the reading foundational skills, they're organized into 2 columns. As you can see underneath the title, Oral Skills, The column on the left is Arizona's English Language Proficiency Standards, Reading Foundational Skills. And the column on the right is Arizona's English Language Arts Standards, Reading Standards. As a teacher teaching English learners, you'll want to live and document in that far left column, Arizona's English Language Proficiency Standards, Reading Foundational Skills. The right-hand column is included as a crosswalk to reference the foundational skills from the K-12 Reading and Language Arts Standards. Again, as a teacher teaching English learners, you will live in and document from that left-hand column. Additionally, the Reading Foundational Skills are a piece of the English Language Proficiency Standards for ELs in kindergarten through 5th grade. These skills are a part of the standards and will be assessed on the new ESELA. The English Language Proficiency Standards for an English learner in 6th through 12th grade are organized slightly different. For secondary level English learners, each grade band document opens and contains only the 10 numerical ELP standards, still organized by communication type, which are productive communication, receptive communication, interactive communication, and language. English learners at this level should have a foundation of reading skills that they have been building upon for years, so the reading foundational skills were not included as standards for 6th through 12th grade, but rather as an appendix. For the instances where an English learner enrolls at the secondary level but needs the foundational skills to reading, the Reading Foundational Skills Appendix is available to support reading instruction with the same 4 skill sets: phonological awareness, print concepts, phonics and word recognition, and fluency. Here is an example of the Reading Foundational Skills from the 6th through 12th grade reading document. As you can see in this appendix document, it also lists the foundational oral and print skills English learners may need extra support with as they acquire the English language. As a reminder, the reading foundational skills are just that. They're foundational skills for reading. This particular document is organized in the same fashion as the K-5 documents. For all levels, the reading foundational skills are organized into 2 columns. Under oral skills, the title there, the column on the left is Arizona's English Language Proficiency Standards, Reading Foundational Skills. The column on the right is Arizona's English Language Arts Standards, Reading Standards. As before, a teacher teaching English learners from the appendix, you will live in and document from the left-hand column under Arizona's English Language Proficiency Standards, Reading Foundational Skills. As was mentioned before, the right-hand column is included as a crosswalk reference to the foundational skills from the K-12 Reading and Language Arts Standards. As you can see in the column on this page, the ELA standards do not include foundational reading skills in 6th through 12th grade. But because as a teacher of an English learner, you may have an EL enroll that may need to have some foundational reading gaps closed as part of their language development instruction. For this, OELIS has included the skills in an appendix resource for reading foundations. As you will notice, these skills are not a part of the standards for 6th through 12th grade, but rather an appendix. Because these skills are not explicitly taught at this level, they will not be assessed on the new ESELA. As I mentioned moments ago, we will now take a high-level look at the organization of the 10 numerical standards for our English learners in kinder through 12th grade. Keep in mind that you'll see the same organization for all sets of standards for kindergarten through high school. According to the chart here on the screen, you'll see on the far left side each standard number. Just to the right of that, you'll see the verbiage for each of those 10 standards. From there, the English language proficiency standards are, and as was mentioned before, grouped based on the type of communication. Very different from the English language proficiency standards of the past, the skills in the new language standards are intended to be taught in a woven manner rather than in allocated lessons. On the far right side, you can see the intentional grouping of those language skills. Standards 1 and 2 represent receptive communication, which are the skills for listening and reading. Standards 3, 4, and 5 represent productive communication, which are the speaking and writing skills. Standards 6, 7, and 8 represent a collection of skills for interactive communication in which all listening, reading, speaking, and writing skills are woven. Finally, Standards 9 and 10 place the intentional focus on language, those skills for vocabulary and grammar. The skills in Standards 9 and 10 are the language skills meant to be woven amongst all other 8 standards. Let's take a moment to pause our learning and check our understanding of what we've discussed so far. Get your notes, a piece of paper, or a Post-it, and get ready to jot down your answer. Here's our check for understanding statement. True or false? Reading foundational skills are taught in each grade or grade band. Please take a moment to reflect on our time together so far and determine if this statement is true or false. If needed, please pause this presentation so that you may process your answer. Let's take a look at the answer. If you said false, you are correct. The reading foundational skills are only taught and intentionally planned for in kindergarten through 5th grade. In grades 6 through 12, the Reading Foundational Skills Appendix exists to support teachers in referencing information about reading skills to assist with the instruction of the ELP standards. They also exist in grades 6 through 12 as a resource and support in closing gaps and reinforcing those foundational reading skills. As an additional support for full implementation of the 2019 ELP standards, OWELLIS developed a comprehensive glossary document to accompany the standards. The new glossary is divided into 3 sections. Part 1 addresses aspects of language. In this section, you will find the meanings to terms such as functions of language or scaffolds. Part 2 are the ELP standards key terms. Included in this comprehensive list of terms, these words are directly noted and used from the 2019 English Language Proficiency Standards document. Finally, Part 3 of the glossary addresses grammar. Included in this last section are all 8 parts of speech, plus additional grammar skills, all defined and include examples when applicable. All documents that we've discussed today, as well as coming support documents, can easily be found on the OWELLIS website. The web address you can find on your screen here. From the OWELLIS homepage, you'll see 2 places to be able to click for ELP standards. One, the ELP standards at the top of the screen with the blue toolbar, or a dark blue button on the right-hand side of your screen. Both of these options will take you to the English Language Proficiency Standards page. From there, you'll want to scroll down past the 2010 standards, where you will find the section for Revised 2019 English Language Proficiency Standards. On the left side of your screen, you'll see 3 buttons for the grade level breakdown of those English Language Proficiency Standards. On the right-hand side, you'll see another blue drop-down for all of the resources and support documents being loaded to assist you in standards implementation. The last bit of our time together today will be spent looking at how to read and document the new ELP standards. As in previous iterations of the standards and forms of documentation, OWELLIS is providing the fields with a stripped-down formula for the suggested coding of the new ELP standards. The first set of skills we will look at documentation for are the reading foundational skills. This is particularly important for teachers in of ELs in kindergarten through 5th grade. Again, you can see here a screenshot from the page of the 4th and 5th grade standards where we specifically are looking at the reading foundational skills, and we will document and use those skills in the far left column. Based on the formula in the box, we will first identify the skill as EL, and because these are English learner skills. Then we will identify the grade or grade level band being used to document. You can always locate this at the top of your document or at the top of each page. Then, in this case, because we're referencing the reading foundational skills, we will document RF for reading foundational standards or skills. This can be found again at the top of your page in the far left side. From there, we need to identify the skill number, which will be found in that left-hand column. We'll note that with a number. Then we will need to note the specific sub-skill letter, and you can find that again in the left-hand column. Then we will always ensure that we include the verbiage of the skill being addressed so as not to provide any confusion. We're explicitly noting the skill being taught. Now let's take a look at the documentation in action with an actual example. Based on the formula on the previous slide, we will start at the top of the page and move downward, just as we did before. We will first identify the skill as EL, because it's part of the EL standards. We will then identify the grade or grade band being used as part of our documentation. And in this case, we're using 4-5 for grades 4 and 5. For the lesson we are teaching and documenting a skill from the Reading Foundational Standards, next we will want to make sure we note RF. Next, remember we note the skill number. We found that in the far left column. In this case, we're working with skill number 1, so we'll document that with a number 1 in our formula. Next, we need to note the sub-skill letter. In this case, the skill that we're actually working on is skill letter B, so we'll put the B after the skill number. And then, of course, we want to include the verbiage of the skill being addressed. In this example, it's produce the 44 phonemes with verbal modeling and visual cues. So to put this all together, I would document in my lesson plans or in my classroom, EL point 4-5 point RF point 1B produce the 44 phonemes with verbal modeling and visual cues. Now we'll look at the suggested documentation for the numerical ELP standards, which are similar to the reading foundations with a couple of minor adjustments. Regardless of the skills being documented, please consider the elements that are required or are critical for anyone to be able to locate the skill or performance indicator being taught in a given lesson. That being said, you can see here again from a screenshot, the standard is from the 4th and 5th grade level. Similar to the last example, we will gather the necessary information and elements for documentation from this page as we move from top to bottom looking for that skill. So based on the formula again, we're working with our EL standards, so we will mark it with EL. The next thing we need to note or document is the grade or grade level band that we're pulling the performance indicator from. Next, we will need to document the standard and the number of which we're pulling from. Here we'll mark S and whatever number the standard number is. Next, we will need to identify the skill being taught. The first thing I have to note is the proficiency level. Then what is the skill number? And then from there, we will finally identify the verbiage of the performance indicator being taught and pull the full verbiage out. Again, let's take a look at the documentation in action with an actual example. Based on the formula in the previous slide, we will start at the top of the page and move downward. We will first need to identify the standard as an EL standard. So again, we're marking that with EL. Then we need to identify the grade or grade level band. And in this case, we're working with grades 4-5. So I'll mark it with a period and then a 4-5. The next thing we need to identify as we move down the page is the standard number. And in this case, we're working with standard 3. So I will document that with an F3. The next thing I need to identify is the skill itself. So from the skill itself, we need to pull out the proficiency level being taught. And in this example, we've highlighted the pre-emergent and emergent. So we're going to document that and shorten it down to PE/E. Next, we need to identify the skill number. And in this case, it's pre-emergent emergent skill number 1. And then finally, the verbiage of the skill to deliver short oral presentations that include a few details. So if I put this all together, the documentation for this example would be EL from 4-5, standard 3, pre-emergent, emergent, skill number 1. To put all of the coding together, you can see that the suggested coding and the example for documentation on one page provided here. The box at the top of the suggested coding is the ELP standards for reading foundational skills. The box below reiterates the suggested coding for the example for the Numerical English Language Proficiency Standards 1 through 10, all on the same page where you can use it as a quick reminder, quick example. As we wrap up our time together today, let's revisit the objectives we had set forth at the beginning of our module. Today, we aim to provide you with the following: the legislative context behind Arizona's new English language proficiency standards, along with the process for revision. We aimed to share with you the purpose of the English language proficiency standards and how they've changed. We looked at how those standards are organized now and how to read them, as well as resources available for you to use them. And then finally, we looked at how to code and document the 2019 English Language Proficiency Standards for planning and instruction. Based on review of these skills, we've hit all of our objectives today. As we wrap up our time here, should you have any questions regarding the details presented in this module, please reach out to your EL coordinator at your district or charter. Or if you are the EL coordinator and you still have questions, please reach out to your OELS regional specialist. If you're uncertain of who your specialist is, you can locate the list at our OELS website here noted on the screen, or you can email the OELS inbox at oelsinbox@azed.gov, and we will let you know who your regional specialist assigned to your LEA is. Thank you for spending some time with us today to review the basics of the new 2019 English Language Proficiency Standards. Have a lovely day.